Welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Countdown to Inauguration Day. Vice President Mike Pence says it's going to be safe and it's going to be orderly and everything's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. And I find it interesting that it's Mike Pence saying these things. When it should be, the number one guy. When number two takes over, there, you kind of go, there's a problem with number one. And oh, yes, indeed, there is going to be a problem. And as I said earlier today on Twitter, for all of my MAGA hat wearers and all of my Trumpkin supporters who are hoping ill on Inauguration Day, and hoping, bad for Joe Biden on the day, because I've had a couple of people who have made some interesting comments. Remember, if something happens to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris is president. Don't color yourself warned. If something horrible happens, don't say I didn't warn you, because I would have to think that there would be a massive crackdown. Massive. Now, interesting stories coming out of the White House. Evidently, this is one of those weird things that I would have loved to have seen. Honestly, more than anything, I would have loved to have seen Donald Trump march his way to the House while the impeachment vote was going on to make excuses. Evidently, this was there were people actually trying to restrain him from showing up and justifying, the perfect comments. Totally acceptable comments that he made to march down Pennsylvania Avenue and take back everything and all of the things that he's been saying over the last 5 years, all of the violence that he's thrown in here, all of the not just dog whisper, but all of the screaming to white supremacists, hey, over here. Interesting. Now, instead of doing that, he kept himself occupied by handing out a couple of medals. You got one to Toby Keith. I'm going, why? If you're going to give it to Toby Keith, aren't there like 1,000 other country music people you could give one to? Couldn't we just line them up and give them out like they came out of a gumball machine? And also Kay Coles James, who is the president of the Heritage Foundation, which, to be honest, deserves to be recognized as someone who has done irreparable harm to the country. The Heritage Foundation is kind of like that beginning of the end, if you will, where the big moneyed interests invested in, hey, let's come up with a think tank so we can spew our alternative reality, and then down the road as we create all of this echo chamber that eventually came, we'll have a place for it, and that's what the Heritage did. So I guess good. I guess a well received medal on the right wing. Surprise, no Bill Belichick. So good on Bill Belichick for bailing. Now, I do find it interesting that there's still talk of, hey, Donald, you should probably resign and hope that Mike Pence pardons you. I personally think it's never going to happen. Now, I said the other day it was resignation watch because everything looked like, at that moment where, he might get removed. I still don't think the Republicans in the Senate have the stones or the backbone or the love of this country and the Constitution to actually do their job. But there are some reasons why a resignation and a pardon wouldn't be a bad idea, because he could eventually run in 4 more years if he really wanted to. If he took a pardon, and which is why I don't think a resignation and a pardon is possible. As I understand the pardons, you have to admit, you have to go through an allocution. You have to, you're guilty. You did it. You did something wrong. And I don't know that he'll ever admit that he was wrong. So I'd never see him as someone who's going to back up, which, understand why the crazy right wing loves him. He's never going to apologize. Never. Even though he's dead wrong in this. Now, it's going to be interesting over the next couple of days because there's still some entertainment to be had between now and Inauguration Day. And we find out that evidently Trump and Steve Bannon have kissed and made up. And we'll see what kind of hand of evil will be happening over the next couple of days around that. Now, James Comey back in the news, and I really, to be honest, didn't really want to hear from Comey ever again. I would be perfectly okay with going, I'm okay. Thanks, Jim. But evidently he said that Joe Biden should at least consider pardoning Donald Trump. At least consider it. And I get his point, because you want some unity. You want him to go through the elocution of, he did it. And go through some admission of guilt. That ain't going to happen. This is what happens. And this is what's happened for a long time. I mean, this goes back to, to Nixon. Nixon, who had Watergate, and he resigned and was pardoned, and no consequences really. Reagan, with all of the Iran-Contra and all the scandals and the 100+ people who were indicted and did jail time, he never had any real repercussion because H.W. Bush, basically swept it all under the rug. W, never any repercussion whatsoever. Out of the CIA agent, his administration did, the lies around the WMDs, which, I have a friend, a former congressman who comes on this program often, who I believe, and he has said, to his death, it will be the vote that haunts him because he believed the lies that sent, millions of people into battle and thousands of people to lose their lives. So, this is one of those moments where, now we're going to, you do not, under any circumstance, pardon him whatsoever. Because look, it's still ongoing. The fact that he's still saying, I did nothing wrong, some people thought it was perfectly appropriate, just kind of plays further into this frame that they weren't, what happened last Monday or last Wednesday wasn't wrong. And that's the thing that gets me. It was wrong on every level. And our government was unprepared at every level. The Trump-led administration of Homeland Security and the FBI and all of that, completely flat-footed and unprepared. Now, you could say, was it on purpose? Was this something that they did? And now we're hearing all these reports like we talked about yesterday, potentially of congressmen giving reconnaissance tours, potentially of all of this information being cross-shared on how they were going to take the building anyway. The fact that Trump was watching it on TV and gleeful and did nothing to respond, and the response was, too far away anyway. Now you've got the FBI going, well, oops. Evidently, there were a bunch of people in the Capitol on that day who were on the terror watch list. Oops, we had the information. It's kind of like 9/11 all over again. We knew, but we didn't know because we had somebody asleep at the switch. And this, again, is another reason why I think Republican governance is horrible. When Republicans tell you that government can't work and they don't believe government can work, for them, they're right. Believe them. Don't ever elect them again. Don't ever put them in charge of the picnic or the trip to the zoo or anything because they can't do it. And I look at this latest interview with Rex Tillerson by Foreign Policy magazine, which he just skewers Trump. Now, look, there's no love lost there after, Tillerson, the first cabinet member to be fired via Twitter in history. I mean, normally they bring in and say, well, I want your resignation. No, he found out with a tweet. Welcome to Trump's America. But he went through, and Tillerson went through. He said, look, we ruined any chance we had with North Korea because, Trump had to have his moment, had to have his meeting. That's blown. With Russia, forget about it. With China, he actually said we're worse off now with China than we were when we started. And he's like, I can't even believe that's possible because I didn't think it could get any worse. And he goes through and he talks about how Trump has this narrow field of understanding, doesn't get world affairs, doesn't quite understand anything, and that he used to have to come in with props, pictures, and giant signs to keep his attention. And you go, but we knew all this. And we did. But to have Rex Tillerson come out and say, look, this is how it was. This is why things are so bad. Why are you surprised the pandemic was so bad? This is the guy you had. You had a guy who took a Sharpie and drew an extension onto a map because that's what he understands. That's where his intellect is. Some of the other things he said, look, how can you have a guy who's dealing with global affairs who's hamstrung by his own short attention span theater and doesn't understand global history and won't listen. I mean, that's the other part of it. And he went into this. He goes, if someone got to him early in the day, there was no talking to him. He already had his mind made up. And that someone was usually outside the White House. He didn't name names, but you knew it was Fox News he was talking about. So you had a bunch of these blathering idiots who are talking directly to the president, who then isn't listening to his own advisors because he heard it like the curmudgeon sitting in front of the TV with the TV tray, watching Fox News, screaming, in his bathrobe. That's our president. Tillerson said you can't have a sustained conversation with him because he's just not there. And I've said for a long time, I don't think it's his diminished intellect or diminished capacity. I think it's just who he's always been. And it's just crazy. He did finish up with the interview, kind of going, look, China's a problem. We've made things exponentially worse. And as I've been saying, our trade deficits are incredibly worse. Our dependence on their manufacturing, way too much, and their muscular stance in the region, getting worse. Tillerson said that he's got a fear that it's going to come to a military conflict in the next decade because China's going to make their move on Taiwan. And just today we had, one of the people from the UN say, we're always going to be a strong ally of Taiwan. The question is, how strong? Are you ready to go to war? You ready to start blowing things up because Trump screwed up China so badly? Now, look, I was with him at the beginning. Said it from the start. We got to do something about China. 4 years have gone by, and it's only gotten worse. So don't tell me that, well, that's one of his accomplishments. He showed them. He showed them that we're kind of a paper tiger. Because the question is, how many Americans are going to go, oh, yeah, I want to go to war with China? Just crazy. Now, Joe Biden's going to have to pick this up. Joe Biden's got an enormous mess. North Korea's getting more mouthy. They're talking about nuclear ambitions again. Because, hey, new administration coming in. They are not sending love letters yet. And China. And North Korea is going to get worse as China feels more emboldened to kind of put them in the middle of things. And here we are. Our economy's still in tatters. A virus that is raging out of control. We've got serious, serious problems. And the hope is that Joe Biden, when he comes into office, we hit the ground running. Because every report that I'm hearing is, well, the transition isn't going well. In fact, so bad that evidently a moving crew stole a bust of Abraham Lincoln. We got to worry about the artifacts too. But Joe Biden came out with a rescue plan he's going to look for about $1.9 trillion to put into some pretty important places. We need a huge influx of money into getting shots into people's arms. They want to get 100 million doses into people over 100 days. They want to reopen schools, or most of them within 100 days. They're going to get some money to state and local governments. Direct payments, they're talking about $1,400 per individual. Going back to giving some more unemployment benefits because our job numbers are atrocious. Another 1.1 million Americans filed new unemployment claims in the first full week of this year. That is a 25% increase from the week before. You have almost 300,000 people filing the PUA claims, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance claims. Those are the people with the gig folks. So lots of problems, and no one at the wheel right now. So when Biden comes in, a big plan to help get us moving forward, moving in the right direction. Also going to get some aid to keep people in their rental units, some aid for renters, some aid for small businesses who've been just decimated by all this. Extensions of the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit, and some other really good stuff that going to help our economy and help people who are struggling, so that we can get through this, and then on the other side we can rebuild. Also, after this, they're talking about sometime in February, once we get a handle on where we are, once we start moving along, getting more vaccines out, we start reopening things in a smarter way. Then a giant infrastructure plan. This is brilliant. This is exactly what should have happened from the beginning in the Trump administration, should have happened in the first Obama term. Massive investments in infrastructure. This plan that Biden's coming out with, double the size of what Obama came out with. This is chunky. This is big. This is good. This is going to help. And who's it going to help? It's going to help the people at the bottom. Even those Trump supporters who are out there rioting and looting and doing all the things that we saw last Wednesday. And that's the right thing to do. Question is, how many Republicans are going to come along? We're hearing a lot of talk now. Oh, I care about those poor people who are losing their jobs and losing their homes. Oh, I care about those struggling small businesses. And oh, goodness, I care about those people who are losing their savings. I care so much. We need unity right now. Never mind what happened last week. That's in the past. We need unity. You're seeing all these Republicans saying that. How many of them are going to vote when this plan comes out to get money into people's pockets, to get our infrastructure rebuilt, and to keep people in their homes? I can tell you how many right now, and it hasn't even been put to them yet. A big zero. Not one of them are going to find a conscience. Not one of them give a tinker's damn about any working person. They care about themselves and their donors, and that's going to play out over the next year. You know it's going to happen. Don't even pretend to think it's not. The question is what are we going to do to hold them accountable when they fall down and fail us in this moment, our moment of need? That's my question. I got a lot to get to today. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, Rich Ojeda is going to be here. Stick around.
Nothing more American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On the Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1888. That was the day novelist Edward Bellamy published his futuristic utopian novel, Looking Backward, 2000 to 1887. The protagonist, Julian West, wakes up in the year 2000 to find that industry has been nationalized and wealth, goods, and services have been equitably distributed. People work less, retire early, and enjoy greater leisure. Looking Backwards was so popular that by 1900, only Uncle Tom's Cabin and Ben-Hur had sold more copies. Bellamy's utopia solved problems of capitalism through the development of a socialistic society. Bellamy denied he was a socialist and instead referred to his vision as nationalist. The novel sparked a political movement virtually overnight. Bellamites, as they were called, formed nationalist clubs across the country. They attempted to organize a people's party around these clubs, which soon dissolved into the populist movement of the 1890s. Looking Backwards was a response to the Gilded Age world of monopolies and trusts, depressions, and often violent class convulsions. Bellamy was quick to indict the banks, the railroads, and the corrupt political system that served them. Sociologist Arthur Lippow argues in his book that while Bellamy may have expressed anti-capitalist sentiments, his future is one in which there is no democratic public life or political process. For Lippow, Bellamy's particular collectivist view is militaristic and bureaucratic, and does away with representative bodies of any kind. Socialist Party leader Eugene V. Debs credited his own political development in part to reading Looking Backwards. He noted that, regardless of whether Bellamy considered himself a socialist, his novel generated popularity and enthusiasm for socialist ideas, causes, and politics.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So you saw this Eugene Goodman, and I think everyone saw his heroics in the Capitol that saved a lot of senators. I think saved them their lives. There's talk now of giving Officer Goodman the Congressional Gold Medal for heroism, and I think he deserves more than that. But that's a start. It's a start. I think what he really deserves is that we get every one of these criminals and these looters who put him and his coworkers, their lives in danger, and we lock each and every one of them up for a very long time. But here to share some thoughts on, well, what happened last Wednesday and maybe where we go from here, I've asked our good friend Rich Ojeda to come talk with us. He's the national spokesperson for No Dem Left Behind. Richard, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you for having me on, Rick.
So, I look at the heroics of this police officer, and I think everyone would agree that this guy, in that moment, faced with all of those people, that angry mob coming at him, deserves the utmost credit and, at least at the minimum, this medal.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I actually sent a few messages to some of my congressional friends that I have on the Hill, and I said, this right here needs to be what brings back the shine in the Medal of Freedom. I personally think that Joe Biden should present him with the Medal of Freedom, since it's been absolutely drugged through the garden by being given to Rush Limbaugh, Jim Jordan, and Nunes. So I think that this Eugene Goodman needs to be hailed as the hero that he is. The guy, you're talking about a man who could think. This guy was thinking on his feet while he was moving backwards, and he knew that he had to try to convince them to follow him instead of going in the other direction, which would have been the hallway where they were keeping the senators safe. So yes, he should be hailed as a hero. This guy we have got to pump him up. He deserves everything.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, that we put the shine back on the medal, because as you pointed out, Limbaugh's got it, and now Toby Keith. I'm like, I really, Toby Keith?
Good. It's garbage. Donald Trump has absolutely, first off, he's destroyed everything he's ever touched. He's the opposite of the Midas touch. And, the mere fact that, this guy has just given this Medal of Freedom away to just people that are his supporters in crime, it's just absolute garbage. Honestly, the moment that he said Nunes and Jim Jordan, the first time, as soon as they gave it to Rush Limbaugh, I said it's garbage. So it's a shame.
And sadly, it's in my view diminished its value. And
yes.
And again, another thing that we have to reclaim. Now, yeah. I want to get your thoughts about Wednesday, because obviously you're someone who served a very lengthy military career, someone who I view as very patriotic. Thoughts?
Devastated. The mere fact that, we had the president of the United States, which is nothing more than a carnival barker, firing up a group of people and, of course, saying, we're going to march to the Capitol and I'll be with you. And then, of course, Rudy Giuliani's trial by combat. And, of course, Don Jr. and Eric also pumping everybody up. And then they send this crowd over to, our nation's capital while they run the other way. And the things that took place in this nation's capital are unacceptable. 5 people lost their lives, and I'm not losing any sleep over 4 of them. But you killed a police officer. You killed a police officer who also happened to be an Air Force veteran, that was an Iraqi war veteran, that was there trying to do his job and feed his family, and they killed him. They killed him. And every single person that participated in that needs to hold some of that responsibility. And Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and the 2 Trump knuckleheads, they absolutely need to be held accountable for this. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow this to happen. I don't want to see any of these people get slaps on the wrist. I want to see them be held accountable. The mere fact that we had a rebel flag flying inside that hallowed building on hallowed ground, that is unacceptable. The mere fact that people chose to burst into our Capitol, knowing that the people to their right was waving rebel flags and wearing shirts that said 6 million wasn't enough, and Camp Auschwitz. And they still said, let's stand together and go. They lost everything. And I'm so glad. I'm loving the photographs and the videos that we're seeing of these people. Before they even made it to the airport, they were already put on the no-fly list. Don't mess with technology that happens to be in our nation's capital, because if you went in there and you had a phone in your pocket, you're caught. You may not have received that knock on your door yet, but hey, make no mistake about it, it's coming.
They're coming for you. Now, one of the things that's most troubling to me, and as I said, you're someone who spent a good majority of your life in the military, is the number of people with military backgrounds who were in that crowd, and obviously the number of people who were the wannabes and the militia types and the folks who were hiding in the woods. But are you distressed by the number of people with military backgrounds who were in that
because
crowd?
the truth. But the truth is most of those people that had military backgrounds, they never really went anywhere in the military. They may have made it to the ripe old rank of private first class or lance corporal, but that's about it. I mean, those are the people that talk about their military experience and act like they're going to do anything, but they've never really been through any training at all to really be able to move troops and get things done. I was disappointed in the Air Force Lieutenant Colonel with the handcuffs, on his stuff there. But once again, these are people that they never really got any real combat. They might have went, but they sat behind a desk. They don't know what it's like to truly get it on, and that's another reason why I can tell anybody who's seen war does not want to repeat war. I don't care who you are. You don't want to continue down that path. So all these people here that get fired up by this carnival barker and they want to act like they're all that in a bag of chips, they're not. They're not. I'll tell you right now, we got about 15 to 20,000 National Guardsmen around those capitals. And let me tell you something. Those National Guardsmen, almost every one of them's got between 1 and 3 combat deployments. So don't think for a second that you're going to go there and you're going to start pushing people around, because you will get checked at the door.
Yeah, one of the things that I had said about Wednesday, and I personally believe that we were undersecured for a reason. Let me pose it to you this way: do you think it's possible that at the highest levels, this was not only encouraged by Trump and Giuliani and them, but allowed to happen by not being as prepared as we would have been for any other type of large rally, be it Black Lives Matter, be it the Women's March, be it anything? We were not prepared for this on any level.
There were people behind the scenes that were absolutely complicit in this. And I'm telling you right now, if this would have been Black Lives Matter, or if it would have been Muslims doing a march, we would still be mopping up the blood and sorting the bodies. There is a reason why this happened. And on our security at the Capitol were absolutely by themselves. This was unacceptable. Some people knew that this was going to happen. Some people participated in it. Now we're hearing that the day before, some members of Congress was walking groups through the buildings, and it's looking like they may have actually been walking people saying, hey, over here's Nancy's office and over there's, so-and-so's office. And if that is found to be true, those people need to lose their seats. In West Virginia, we had one jackaloon who daggone ran through the front door, who just happened to win his House seat. And by the way, before he even got a chance to sit in it, he's already gone. He's done. But we now know that we have others. We have a state senator that possibly was there. We had a city councilman that was there. There's all kinds of people that participated in this, and every single one of them that participated in this participated in a treasonous, seditious act against our democracy. This will be in the history books 300 years from now, what took place right now. And the mere fact that it all come from a president that is an absolute sore loser, and there's 74 million people that obviously don't have the friggin' mental capability to realize you lost. You don't have voter fraud and all this other stuff. You don't. 74 million people. And then you got Josh Hawley saying 74 million people need to have their voices heard. Well, what about the 82 million people that told Donald Trump to pack his stuff and get out? That's the people that we need to listen to, because that's the majority.
Absolutely. And this is, I'm listening to Holly, and I'm listening to Gun Fetish Barbie, and I'm listening to a number of these mouthpieces who really cheerleaded this on, who are really out in front of this, the one that today's 1776 and all of that kind of nonsense, who are now saying, but Richard, we need unity. We care about those poor working people. Oh, we need to do something to do something about the plight of the homeless. Anything but, hey, they were involved in one of the worst moments in our country's history.
Well, you watch Mitch McConnell, and of course, now that Mitch McConnell knows that he's no longer going to be the majority, speaker, the majority, the Republican majority, I'm talking about.
The leader,
Yeah. Now all of a sudden you see him go, well, we need some bipartisanship. That's how it always is. When the Republicans realize that they're losing power, they're really quick to say, it's time for us to reach across the aisle and let's be friends. But the moment that the Republicans take power, they look at the Democrats and say, shut your mouth. You're going to do exactly what we want, and we don't care what you think. Oh, it's how dare you all feel a Supreme Court seat in the last year of the presidency? And then what do? The last year of theirs, they rush one through. It's impossible. There's just not enough time for us to be able to impeach Donald Trump. But you can force feed a Supreme Court justice down our throat in 3 to 5 days. It's garbage. It's a double standard. It's all it is. It always is.
I'm right there with you. But here's the thing. I also blame Nancy Pelosi for this because in my view, Wednesday night, Thursday morning, 4:01, once the vote was certified and the electors were counted and Joe Biden is president-elect, I'm filing those articles of impeachment Thursday morning. We got the vote at 4 a.m. They're there. 9 o'clock in the morning, we're voting, and we're removing his butt by noon if possible.
Yeah. Oh, believe me. I wanted to see this. And I still want to see the Senate follow through and remove him. And I wanted to do it before he left office. I think he deserves to go out in pure shame. I want to make sure that we set things up to where we don't have to worry about him or any of his kids in 2024, because make no mistake about it, these people will come back in 2024. The reason why Republicans are still standing up and arguing against the Electoral College and stuff like that is because they feared that Donald Trump is still going to have a voice over the next couple of years that could come back and haunt them. Everybody knows what took place. Everybody knows that what happened in our Capitol was an absolute horrible attack. Everybody knows that was wrong. But these people are still scared of Donald Trump. And it bothers me when you got people like Dan Crenshaw, who happens to be a Navy SEAL, who's a combat veteran. But the thing is that he knows that in his district, his people still think that Donald Trump is the second coming of Christ, no matter what he does. And because of that, he's going to still stand by Donald Trump when he should show leadership and bravery and daggone call Donald Trump out for what Donald Trump has done. Dan Crenshaw is a coward.
Now, I'm looking at Rex Tillerson's comments about Trump and about how much worse off we are in this moment. And while what happened on Wednesday is horrible, moving forward, as a country, we're in a bad spot. Our economy's in tatters. We're worse off with North Korea. We're worse off with Russia. We're worse off with China. In fact, Tillerson said there's potentially going to be a war in the next decade with China over Taiwan. And we see, now the person who was supposed to go to Taiwan now canceling the trip because, well, a bunch of reasons. Are you worried about where we are? Because look, I look at the Republican Party, who you cannot seem to talk to them about these issues. Are you worried about where we're heading?
Absolutely. Even though, my days in the military are pretty much over with, I could still be called back to active duty if they need me. But I look at how much damage has been done. Our reputation across the globe has been tarnished greatly. We are no longer the voice of reason. Now we're the people that everyone's making fun of all across the globe. Donald Trump has broken ties with everybody. Iran, absolutely, the things that he's done with Iran. We are not nowhere near as safe as we should be as a nation. And we have enemies all over now. And we have a person in the White House that, honestly, it would not surprise me if we found out later on down the road that he sold secrets. You show me somebody that will attack our nation's capital, and I'll show you somebody who'll sell secrets. They're worried about Donald Trump telling things to other people. Wouldn't surprise me if he's already fed Putin with information. We have a person in the White House that has absolutely weakened us at every single level, every way, in every way, shape, or form. We have been weakened in this country by this guy. And the mere fact that nobody has had the courage to remove him, and still to this day, right now, they think that if they probably sent it to the Senate, they still wouldn't remove him. And that's where we're at. And it's amazing with everything that has happened, because here's the thing you got to think about. let's go back and look at Donald Trump's 4 years. Mexico didn't build the wall. He shut down the government. Remember, the government shut down. He banned a religious group. He banned Muslims. He called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He separated their children from them at the border. And oh, by the way, now it's known that it was his decision to go ahead and separate the children, the ones that were still, suckling on their mother. That Donald Trump did that. And then we can continue going down the road with all the different things that he has dropped, the tariffs that screwed the farmers over. And now we got a global pandemic. And oh, by the way, right now it's 397,000 dead Americans. We're going to break 400,000 probably before you wake up tomorrow morning. And that's Donald Trump. Because why? Because he chose, and the people with him chose, to look the other way instead of do the right thing. Our nation is, Joe Biden's got a lot of work to do.
So last question I've got for you. Obviously next week's the inauguration. Do you see this going off smoothly, or are you expecting violence and bloodshed as is being promised by some on the right?
I don't think that we're going to see any issues in Washington, D.C., because they have 20,000 troops right now surrounding the area, and you're still going to have plenty of police officers that are going to be there. So you may have people showing up, but they're not going to go anywhere near the inauguration. I think so. I think what you have to worry about is that they're also talking about marching on all 50 state capitals. And, I don't know if all 50 state capitals were smart enough to go ahead and take this seriously and call the National Guard to make sure that they're around those places. Because I believe that there is going to be some stuff going off. But I also think that a lot of people, if you're smart, you better start realizing, look at how fast they're busting these people that did it on the 6th. They can get you too. And if you want to lose, if we ever want to see the Second Amendment, in all these people that support the Second Amendment, if we ever see a loss to the Second Amendment, it's not going to be because Democrats. It's going to be because of these jackaloons that think it's okay to just storm our capitals. That's how we lose our Second Amendment.
No, I think you're absolutely right. But Richard, I appreciate the time and the passion. Thanks so much.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, Rick.
Our good friend Richard Ojeda, national spokesperson for No Dems Left Behind. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1868. Representatives from more than 40 locals of the International Union of Bricklayers of North America gathered in New York City. It was the third annual convention of the new union. Members of Local 4 from New York City came to the convention to push for support for the 8-hour day. They also called upon the other unions to stand with their local if they went out on strike to win the 8-hour day. After the Civil War, the idea of an 8-hour workday had increasingly become a rallying cry for workers. Skilled craftsmen, such as bricklayers, would help to lead the charge. In 1910, Johns Hopkins University published a report on the bricklayers' contribution to this important labor struggle. According to their report, the convention decided not to press the 8-hour question at that time. Although the resolution for the 8-hour day had not become a part of the union's formal platform, there was growing member support for the cause. That year, Local 4 went out on strike to win the 8-hour day. They were joined by New York Locals 2 and 12. The young union had little experience with leading such an action. But as the report points out, the workers were, quote, routed in all, but went to pieces. The flame of the idea of the 8-hour workday continued to spread across the International. By the next year's convention, it had caught fire. The resolution for the 8-hour workday was adopted and became an official demand of the Bricklayers Union. 4 years later, the New York locals again went out on strike. This time, the more experienced unions found success. And as the report concluded, in just one day, the men won the shorter day on their own terms. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitter Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So all over the news today is the story of Ivanka and Jared evidently forcing the Secret Service to spend $3,000 a month, about $100,000, I guess, so far since September of 2017. So the Secret Service that were protecting them would have somewhere to go to the bathroom. I guess they had to rent a studio apartment, I guess, in the basement of a neighbor's house for $3,000 a month because, their 6.5 bathhouse couldn't possibly accommodate the Secret Service that was protecting them. And this, again, is just another one of those things. And I'm not really sure how other people have done it in the past, but this is just another one of those things to me that goes, they're bilking the taxpayer at every opportunity, like renting out entire floors of Trump Tower and the hotels and the golf carts and all of the things that we're paying Trump for. And I think we're going to hear a lot more once he's gone. And here to share some thoughts on following the money, I've asked our good friend Pat Garofalo to come talk with us. Pat is the author of The Billionaire Boondoggle, How Our Politicians Let Corporations and Bigwigs Steal Our Money and Jobs. He's also the head honcho over at Boondoggle Newsletter over on Substack. Fantastic newsletter. I get it myself. Pat, thanks for taking time for me.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So $3,000 to rent a little place so that the Secret Service can take a leak every once in a while.
I mean, I live in DC. I understand it's a very expensive neighborhood over there.
So I guess the question I have, because I saw this and my first reaction was like, well, I don't have anything to compare it with. Is this excessive?
I mean, yes. And I think the sort of funniest part of the story is that they needed to walk down the street to go use the bathroom at the Obama's house, because actually that's right around the corner. And so, but this is just indicative, right, of how Trump has managed to build a career, and the Trump family build a career on the backs of taxpayers without taxpayers getting any credit for it, right? You can go back to the very start of his career being a developer in New York City, getting massive tax breaks for the hotels. There's actually his very first hotel project, the Grand Hyatt in New York. The tax break was so long, it's still on the books. New York City is still paying for that tax break on that first Trump hotel development. So this is just sort of an absurd cap to that story.
And this is, I'm glad you pointed that out, because it really shows how politically connected he has been over the years. And, obviously one of his mentors was Roy Cohn and all of the connections that came along with that. And, with the CD side of this. So he's known how to play the game for a very long time. And it even said so. Look, I've bought politicians on both sides. So by being the politician, I think we're going to find out very soon just how much he took for himself.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. We were talking on Twitter earlier today that the guy managed to get impeached twice, and neither of them were for the super corrupt and ongoing practice of literally charging the taxpayers for rooms at his hotels, for golf carts. And that still doesn't get into the awfulness that goes down about him owning the DC hotel, which was just a way for foreign dignitaries, for corporate CEOs to funnel money into his pocket. It's really outrageous, but in the sort of scope of outrageousness in this administration, it's easy to forget. But every single day, that sort of stuff was going on.
But what do you say, Pat, to the person who goes, well, Pat, he's just a smart businessman. This is a good business venture.
I mean, I guess there is a certain level of truth to the fact that if tax breaks and giveaways and incentives are available, then a chunk of the blame goes to the political actors. Of course, that's totally true. That doesn't excuse him having a hotel and having like the executives for T-Mobile going and staying in the hotel when they have mergers before the federal government, right? So there's a couple of buckets of things going on here. yes, he managed to build his developments on the backs of taxpayers, and part of the blame for that certainly goes to the political leaders who were doling that stuff out and letting him get away with it. But then on the other side, you did just have this super bucket of corruption just because he is the first president who didn't separate from his business interests.
Yeah, because I've had this conversation a couple of times with Trump supporters, and they're like, "Well, he's a smart businessman, and it's not wrong." And my favorite is, T-Mobile going and staying at his hotel and renting a couple rooms. That's not going to influence him. He's really wealthy. He doesn't need a couple rooms. What do you say to that argument that he's so wealthy that this little bit this doesn't matter?
I guess I say that everything about his personality shows that it matters with him a lot, right? Like these aren't stupid people. There's a reason that foreign dignitaries, ambassadors, CEOs thought it was a worthwhile thing to do to go and stay in this hotel and then talk later in the Oval Office or wherever about how great it was, right? They're doing that for a reason. They weren't paying those inflated rates just because it was such a wonderful hotel to stay in. They were doing that because they thought it bought them influence. And I mean, if Trump is always saying, hey, I was out there buying politicians left and right, that's exactly what these CEOs were doing. They were playing the same game that he claims to have played beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's one of these things. I think once he's gone, we're then going to find out, what actually is what happened. Because I keep coming back to this phrase. Think about what we know, and then imagine all of the stuff that we don't know. I mean, if we know this much, which is usually just the tip of anything, imagine how large the graft is once we open up the books and we start looking.
I think it's absolutely right. I mean, in terms of what we know about direct payments from the government to Trump hotels and golf courses for Secret Service stays and other security measures, it's actually very little. It's only the Washington Post has done a bunch of really good articles, but even they in their copy will admit that they've only scraped the surface. They're only getting drips and drabs. So we don't actually know the full extent to which this has gone on. But what we do know is millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that people call them the Trump criminal enterprise, because that's what it kind of looks like. I mean, it looks top down. Every branch of government is made to make him look better, and it's again, I go back to, if you're a supporter and you're a pro business person, you go, yep, this is marketing at its finest. But for those of us who believe in good governance and that historically we don't have people on the graft like this, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, I just think it's really funny, again, that this just sort of never came up particularly in the 2020 campaign. There was a little noise made in the 2016 campaign about some of his failed business ventures. We heard about Trump Steaks and Trump University and Trump Airlines and all that stuff. But Democrats really turned away from it in 2020. And I don't know, maybe they had polling that said that it didn't resonate. Maybe they just thought other messages were stronger. I'm not an electoral strategist. I don't know. But to me, it seems sort of a slam dunky thing. Like he's literally staying in his hotels and at his resorts to take your money. Yep. And it just really wasn't a thing that got out there. It wasn't a message that anyone on the left really leaned into.
Yeah, no. For me, it's always been about follow the money. It's always been the goal in this. And I look at what happened last Wednesday, and for me, because I've said from the beginning, we go after the people who smashed everything up and defecated on the floor and whizzed on the desks and all of that stuff. Without question, we lock them up, we deal with them. But for me, it's the money. It's the people who organized and funded all this from top to bottom, these secret donors that we find out there's this donor trust of dark money that's actually a nonprofit. Now we see this story coming out that there was a huge amount of Bitcoin payments to these right-wing activists about a month before that came somewhere out of France. There's all of this right-wing money that's just heaping into this. For me, that's what really needs to be investigated and exposed, as much as these idiots who smashed out the windows.
And I mean, we're leaving off one of the biggest actors that was profiting off of this, which is Facebook. Facebook makes money off of this sort of misinformation, conspiracy theorizing, disorganizing online, and this is what we get.
Well, I do blame Facebook for everything. And I do. I mean, the reality is this stuff, just explodes there. I still blame us, for buying it. I mean, I see this stuff come across right and left. Now the left doesn't do it anywhere near as well as the right does. But I look at this stuff and I go, this is unbelievable. Who would buy this?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, there's also, because corporations are profiting off of it, because they've made it profitable to shovel this crud into your eyeballs, it gets placed in front of people in ways that maybe it wouldn't if we had in fact, certainly it wouldn't if we had a much healthier media ecosystem. A couple of my colleagues wrote a piece this week in which they said that until we grapple with the fact that the tech barons are selling tickets to the end of American democracy, we're going to keep heading towards it. And I think that's exactly true. There was a stat, I think we've actually talked about it on this show before. According to Facebook's own internal investigation, almost 2/3 of the people who join extremist groups on Facebook do it because Facebook's algorithms suggest they do so. So this is people who are headed down the rabbit hole. Sure, you have to sort of start to seek this stuff out in order for the algorithms to pick you up, right? But then Facebook and Google through YouTube just shovels it into your eyes and shovels it into your eyes and makes you stay there because that's how they make money.
No, absolutely. So every time I watch an SNL clip from the weekend before, my notifications are all Saturday Night Live clips for the next month. That's all I see. If I watch some drunken fool fail, that's all I see for the next. So I can see how what was meant to get us to keep watching and keep looking at things has been used to keep us looking and watching really bad things.
Exactly.
So how do you change that?
Yeah, someone gets a little QAnon curious, and then all of a sudden, all they're seeing on YouTube is QAnon and QAnon and QAnon. There are lots of things you have to do to change it. I mean, break up these companies is the first thing, much stronger regulatory regimes. And then to me, the thing you have to do is just eventually move away from targeted advertising, right? Because that's the heart of this problem. The fact that these companies make money by tracking your every move and your every interest, and then building up these data profiles on you and selling that to advertisers. And the fact that it's so valuable is because it's so fine-tuned and so particular to you, the specific user. But I don't know that that's like any help for society, right? Like, would the world really be a worse place if we got onto social networks and didn't see ads specifically tailored to us, if it was just ads more generalized like it used to be, like ads you see on television or ads you see in the local newspaper? Like, no, I don't think so. If I hopped on and didn't see ads for like apparel from the specific sports team that I follow, I don't think the world would really be a worse place.
No, I happen to look at this weird bike that I'm trying to talk my wife into letting me buy, and I clicked on it once.
She should totally let you do it.
She's not. I clicked on it once and I watched the little video. Go, wow, this is cool. I got to get one of these. And now, every time I go to another website, there it is going, here I am, come get me. And look, I don't think that's a bad thing so much. But if it is, because I've once looked up some QAnon stuff just to see what it was about. And for a couple of days after, it was there and I ignored it like a sane, rational person would. The problem is the people who were always the conspiracy kooks, the people who were always the tinfoil hat wearers and, shield the windows with tinfoil. They've found a way to find each other. And that's what showed up at our Capitol. All the white supremacists, all the dregs of society, there they were.
Absolutely. Facebook and Google didn't create conspiracy theorists. They didn't create misinformation, but they amplified it. They made it louder. They made it easier to find. And so the people who are already inclined to go that way, it's just that much easier for them to do so. And then the other thing, the flip side of this is that the money that is now supporting Facebook and Google and Amazon used to support local newspapers and local TV. Those used to be ad dollars that flowed to good sources of information in your community. And instead, now it's going to help, Mark Zuckerberg buy another yacht.
No. So let me ask you this, because, there's a lot of talk about this Section 230. And, I've looked into it and I've got some thoughts. What would be wrong with getting rid of it? What would be wrong with saying, if you publish something stupid, you should be held accountable for it? Because I'm a personal responsibility guy. If I say something stupid, I should be held accountable for it. If you deliberately deceive or slander or, defame or any of that stuff, you should be held accountable. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% in agreement with you. If you're a newspaper and you are responsible for what appears in your pages, if you are a television station, you're responsible for what appears over the air. But these social media networks are absolutely not responsible at all for what appears on their networks. If you repealed it tomorrow, would you have to put some other rules in place? Yeah, probably. But the people who think it would be absolute doomsday for the internet, don't know what they're talking about. This is something that protects not just the sort of inflammatory speech that we're talking about when it comes to these social networks, but actual illegal stuff, counterfeiting. There's a reason that Facebook isn't responsible for counterfeit products that get sold in its marketplaces. It's Section 230.
No, I mean, for me, there's a moment where you gotta rip the Band-Aid off. But beyond them being responsible, I'm talking about also the idiot that wrote it. If you put it out there should be some, it's like if you and I were having a conversation face to face and I said something, really, really inflammatory. When I grew up as a kid, I would expect you to punch me in the mouth. I mean, at some point, there's got to be, and this is there. Look, I'm not advocating for people to beat each other up anymore, or maybe I am actually. If you were dumb enough to say something stupid, you should get smacked, and we should have a court system that goes, you know what? You said something stupid. You deserve to get smacked. Shut up before I smack you. Just my thought.
Totally. There's been a diffusion of responsibility, right? And some of that is personal, but a lot of that is also on these companies and the way they've been granted this never appear in jail card. It's not even get out of jail free. It's never show up in a courtroom card.
Right, because my problem is you have so many people who think that it's anonymous. I can say whatever I want. And some of the vile stuff I get every day, no one should have to read. And I'm glad that they send it to me and not somebody else, because I can take it. But, this isn't a civil society. And this is how we end up in this polar opposite environment where now we're in the streets, literally in the streets, killing people.
Yeah, these things aren't good for our brains. I mean, the way that Facebook and Twitter and YouTube have taken over the information infrastructure it's just not good. We've let these corporations become the public square. In a way, we've let them become the place where you gather and talk about society, but they set the rules, and the rules they've set are very bad. And the government hasn't stepped in and said, okay, actually, we're gonna reset the rules because we have a national interest in having a productive dialogue and not this nonsense.
Yeah, last question I've got for you. 1, Trump ban, good thing, bad thing. 2, are you surprised at the number of Republicans whining about how much they used to love the free market and now that the free market has fisted them, they're not so happy?
I think it's a good thing, but it doesn't fix the problem, right? Like, is the world undeniably a better place without Donald Trump tweeting? Yes, 100%. No question about it.
I'm happier.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone wakes up and doesn't feel that stress, right? Like that's absolutely true. But that can't be enough. And we can't rely on Zuckerberg and Dorsey and Sundar Pichai at Google to be the ones to regulate speech on the internet. It can't be up to them. It needs to be up to the government, the people, through their elected representatives.
Yeah, I'm with you. Pat, I appreciate the time. As always, great stuff. I hope people will check out the book, The Billionaire Boondoggle. Also, get the newsletter over on Substack, the Boondoggle newsletter. We'll get links out on how you can do that. Pat, I appreciate the time, man.
Thank you. Anytime.
Good stuff. Pat Garofalo. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1940. Julian Bond was born in Nashville, Tennessee. Bond was one of the leaders of the Civil Rights Movement. He helped found the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, also known as SNCC. SNCC was a leader of the sit-in movement to protest the segregation of public facilities in the South. Bond served as the communication director for the organization. He traveled across the South working on voter registration drives. Bond went on to serve as a Georgia State Representative and then served in the Georgia State Senate. Bond also helped co-found the Southern Poverty Law Center. The Southern Poverty Law Center grew to become a leading organization in fighting against hate crimes and standing up against employment discrimination. For example, in 1981, the Southern Poverty Law Center successfully took a Ku Klux Klan-affiliated Texas militia to court for harassing Vietnamese fishermen in Galveston Bay. As a result, the militia was forced to disband. In 1998, Bond was elected chairman of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. He served in that role for 10 years.
Bond has also been a vocal advocate for gay and lesbian rights. Recently, Bond has taken up the cause of climate change. In 2013, he was amongst a group arrested in front of the White House protesting the Keystone XL pipeline. AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka described Julian Bond as a man who has been a personal hero of mine ever since 1968, when I first heard him speak out against the war in Vietnam. He has been and remains one of this generation's strongest voices for peace and justice.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Are we back to the jungle? An animalistic society with roaming packs of foam-at-the-mouth beasts howling for the enthronement of their king? As witnessed in the ugly collapse of Donald Trump's presidency, his furious animalism was unleashed on America, revealing a soulless selfishness that he had written about years earlier in a book on corporate deal-making. In A Great Deal, he explained, winning is not enough. You crush the opponent. But wait, that's not fair to animals. In the real animal kingdom, the species that are the most successful survivors are not the beastliest, but the ones that work together in a sharing society. From ants to elephants, animals in the wild organize to hunt together, build homes, nurture and teach their young, spread their available food throughout the community, mourn lost ones, etc. They even vote. The real king of the jungle is the group, as has been found in communal societies as varied as meerkats, baboons, and bees. Whether primates or insects, such decisions as where to live and which direction to go forage are made by democratic consensus reached in a sort of caucus system. When several thousand honeybees, for example, split from a hive to form a new colony, they dispatch a few hundred scouts to find a new home. One by one, the scouts report back, doing unique waggle dances that describe what each found. Gradually, scouts decide what bees sight is best and synchronize their waggles accordingly. Once the scouts are doing the same dance, the whole swarm flies off together and settles into their new hive. This is Jim Hightower saying America has more to learn from bees than from Trump and his lifelong enthusiasm for a social order based on corporate power plays. The great hope for our society is not domination by the strong, but cooperation by all.
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's take on what Wall Street and Washington are up to. For information, visit hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I gotta tell you, having one of those days where, everything seems to go in the wrong direction. I woke up today, all of our computers had reset themselves. They had gone into this weird kind of bizarre funk, where everything I had worked on yesterday didn't seem to work. And then you get locked out of stuff, and it's just maddening. It's another reason to hate Microsoft. And I do. Oh, do I? Anyway, big fun today, obviously. Lots of stuff to get to with Gun Fetish Barbie. You got the crazy one down in Georgia. Let's not forget that. And I do enjoy watching the shame walks off the airplanes, and here to share some thoughts on the top stories of the day and maybe some good healthy belly laugh kind of stuff. Our good friend Sarah Perez, she's a reporter over at Raw Story. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello.
And how are we this fine day?
Well, as you can see, I'm coming from John Oliver's White Void. I am back. I am home in the Washington, and so tired that I'm in bed right now.
All right.
So you're all in bed with me.
Well, that's not a bad thing. So you came back from Oklahoma, flew on the plane. Did you get a front row seat to any of the perp walks? Because nothing has been made me happier these last couple of days than watching these idiots being marched off a plane, the shame walk, the ceremonial shame walk. Perp walk through those skinny aisles while everyone around them is applauding and clapping and cheering, while their uber patriot ego is just being shot down in flames. You didn't get to see one of those?
No. And honestly, there were very, very few people on the flight. There was a little old man and his family in the front row of my flight from, I had to stop in St. Louis because I can't get direct flights anymore. And I was so concerned for this little old man because I was just like, how is this guy on a flight? Like, he's going to get COVID. This poor little guy is going to die. And he was like masked up, double masked, and the shield and the gloves. And, bless him. He was working for it. But, I was so nervous for him.
Had his whole space suit.
Yes. And, but what was really interesting, when I boarded the flight to Washington in St. Louis, they rechecked everybody's bags. They had somebody there who went through everything. They checked your ID again, and made you pull down the mask so they could see that it was actually you. They didn't ask me why I was going to Washington, and there was no other real questions about it. When I was getting dressed this morning, I try and dress in layers because you never know what the hell the plane's going to be like. And the only t-shirts that I had was a Buy Dawn shirt and a Riding with Biden shirt and an Alternative Facts t-shirt and then a Covfefe shirt. And I was like, oh crap, if I wear these, am I going to get shot?
Well, you'd have gotten right through security.
Right. And, the TSA guy was super sweet this morning and was just like, you have a blessed day. And it was awesome. And they, I have pre-check, so they don't even look at my stuff. So whenever they looked at my stuff in St. Louis, the lady pulls up in my bag and she's like, wow, you have a lot of candy in here. And I was like, yeah.
Did you offer her a piece?
No, I really should have.
Yeah, well, that is what it is.
So I landed in Washington, and I didn't see a ton of stuff. I came over Memorial Bridge, which is they dumped you right out at the Lincoln Memorial, and then circled back around to go up Rock Creek Parkway by Kennedy Center. And around the Lincoln Memorial, it seemed a little bit like the staging ground that they had set up for the inauguration in 2012. What was different is there are all of these big trucks that are blocking all of the entrances. So you can't go around the circle around the Lincoln Memorial because everything is blocked off there. And there are just tons of tents set up and fencing and everything. And the tents and the fences are a lot like what we saw in 2012. So that didn't really surprise me, but things being blocked off, and there are just tons of police cars with their lights on everywhere. And you could hear the helicopters everywhere. Usually you hear helicopters up here whenever it's somebody coming from Andrews up in our hood. And so usually it's a government person, and I'm in restricted airspace. So you have police officers, medevac, and the White House. Is all that you're going to get from helicopters. And so usually, and I've got to the point now where I can kind of hear the difference between a police helicopter and a Trump helicopter. And so it's just oh, that's him. He's going somewhere.
So you weren't home, while Trump was circling the vice president's residence, though. He didn't get to see that.
No.
Any idea what that was about?
I don't understand what was going on. And part of the reason I did want to kind of come back is, and my mother, bless her heart, was just so worried, and she's still worried. And I'm like, look, this is the safest place in the country right now. We have thousands of National Guard troops. The Secret Service has already been deployed early. I feel safer here than I do in Oklahoma City, where, God knows what's going to happen in our capital there. And but I also kind of wanted to see it, like I'm thinking very seriously about getting up in the morning and going to take some pictures of downtown and what it looks like, because I heard a story about a congressman who basically went and stood on Independence Avenue in the middle of the day and took a picture of himself there because he could. There's no traffic. And that kind of thing, I mean, you don't see that unless it's a blizzard, like traffic doesn't stop in this city unless it's a giant snowstorm. And it's weird. It's eerie. It kind of has that just strange sort of electric feeling of something, where you're waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
And which I can't tell if, that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I don't really feel scared. I don't feel anxious about being here. And like I said, I do feel safer here than I do in Oklahoma City. So because, I mean, at the very least, people here, if they come shooting at you, there's a whole bunch of guys who are going to shoot back.
Yeah, I think they to steal a phrase from my father-in-law. They blew their wad last time. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's more coming.
Yeah.
And the sad reality is and I hear a lot of people saying that there's going to be violence on the inauguration day, and making threats against Joe Biden, and I'm sure you've heard them too.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to remind my maggot friends, if something happens to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris is going to be president. So don't say I didn't warn you.
The thing that I am worried about, I mean, I talked about Oklahoma City, but other state capitals, particularly when you look at Michigan, after what we saw, what happened in Lansing, around all of the crazy guys there who were plotting to assassinate the governor and then take over the Capitol, and then a bunch of those guys who weren't arrested for the plot ended up coming to Washington for the January 6th thing. That makes me nervous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is Milchigan after all.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, when Timothy McVeigh blew up the building there, the Murrah building there in Oklahoma City, direct ties back to Milchigan.
Yeah. And it's, there are so many, I know that this is something that I would hope the FBI is obviously going to spend a little bit more time looking into. I've learned a lot about the terrorist watch list, like the domestic watch list that exists. There's something like there are thousands and thousands of white supremacists that are on a watch list, and the watch list really it's not a no-fly list. It's not a any kind of list that does anything other than really the FBI is just watching you. And these are the people who the most egregious of them are the ones that got a nice visit from FBI agents saying, don't come on the 6th, don't show up. It would behoove you to maybe not show up on the 6th.
Not do that. What I do find interesting, though, and maybe you do too, is we've always said that no matter if you've got your phones off or not, they can still track it. The fact that now they're saying if you were in there and your phone was on, we got you.
And there's like one dude who logged into the Capitol free Wi-Fi network. He's just like, "Oh, you idiot! You stupid fool!" So I
had to get my tweet out, man. Had to get my video out. It was the best way to get the best way to videotape my treason.
I was saying earlier this week, like this. Finally, we have found an upside to stupidity. We're able to finally see these really stupid idiots who are like, "Oh, look, I'm wanted. I'm going to post that on Facebook."
Well,
and then the idiot who posted on Facebook was arrested really quickly because everybody was like, "Oh, he's wanted by the FBI. Hey, FBI, I know this guy. He's on Facebook. Here, go find him."
No, I mean it's funny, and I've been saying we should do like a whole show based, like the old David Letterman, stupid pet tricks. We could have stupid human tricks right here, man.
Stupid racist tricks.
There you go. Now here's the thing. I mean, while they're stupid, they're well armed, and they're still dangerous. And while we're joking about it, the threat of violence is very real. In fact, I've had a representative come on this program that I've known for a while, who won't come back and speak out right now because temperatures are too high for them, and they can't find a bulletproof vest. They can't afford personal security. They're really worried for their own safety. So yesterday when the impeachment stuff happened, you had 10 Republicans who stepped forward, 197 that didn't, and there's part of me that goes, do I forgive some of those 197 cowards for not voting for impeachment because the base might literally kill them? Or is, hey, that's your job. Stand up, be statesman, do your freaking job. Which side do you fall?
I think this is a really hard issue. That was one of the things that I heard Rick Wilson say yesterday, is that he spoke to 2 Republicans who said that they couldn't vote for impeachment even though they wanted to, because it would mean either, that they basically would be killed, their wife would be killed, or their children would be killed. At that point, I wonder, what are you doing in office? I think it's hard because you want to encourage more people from all walks of life to be in government. At the same time, this has become a really dangerous thing. And if you're unable to stand up for your principles out of fear of certain death, then I think you need to get out.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Sarah. I mean, they've been dancing with this devil, and I've been using this analogy a bunch. They've been dancing with this devil. Now is not the time to try and save your soul. And if you want to try and save your soul, you got to come out and you've absolutely got to do the right thing. And behind closed door going, I'd really like to, but, it would be bad for me. That ain't doing it.
Yeah. I think if you can't stand up for principle, then you got to go. And I understand it's difficult. It's a hard decision to make. It's like, you want to do the right thing or you're risking your life and the life of your family. Welcome to what Democrats have been dealing with for the last 5 years. Look at what happened to Ilhan Omar, what's happened to AOC, what happened to Gretchen Whitmer. There are so many Democrats that get constant threats to, random people like me on Twitter I'm nobody, and people will send me really crappy things and threats. And it's just like, this is what we've been dealing with for 5 years. You've had this for 5 minutes. Grow a pair.
Yeah. No, and look, one of the key ones, because I've been following Gun Fetish Barbie here for the last couple of days. Is it wrong to think that she's got penis envy? I mean, because she's always got to have her gun with her. Is that wrong?
I mean, honestly, I'm not sure what her issue is. Either it's a penis envy thing, or she is so secretly insecure that it's not necessarily a penis envy thing. That is the only thing that she has. She's obviously not the sharpest knife in the drawer. She's several fries short of a Happy Meal. And I just don't think that she doesn't really have anything. Like, she's going to end up making the Republican Party look like complete and total fools. She's going to raise Democrats a hell of a lot of money. But I think the only thing she really has that makes her look, tough or strong is her gun. And it's sad.
And of course, the husband that's a flasher.
Well, I'm not sure that is anything that would scare anybody. Maybe startle you. Like, you'd have to be really dodgy in the heart for that to kill you.
I love that frame. But again, there are a bunch of these folks on the right that are in interesting moments, because she's got her problems. Actually, with the tweet during the uprising, kind of giving away Nancy Pelosi's position. That's going to be a problem for her. Maybe they end up taking her gun away, and probably her identity as well, because if she's convicted of a crime, no more gun. And then you got this Paul Gosar guy or Gosar, I guess is how they pronounce it, who is, his name's come up with a bunch of these people. I guess, what were they doing, tours or something? How's he playing into all of this?
So, and Mo Brooks as well from Alabama. Gozer is how I've been told his name is pronounced, as if he is that creepy dude in the Ghostbusters movie. spelled differently, pronounced the same. And what I've heard, what members have said is that they witnessed these members doing tours around the Capitol. I don't know if it was Gozer that was doing it or Brooks who was doing it. They were the guys who were working with one of the pro-Trump kind of extremist dudes who's now in hiding. But there were members that were giving tours. The Capitol is closed right now because of COVID, and so you can't give a tour. The only person who could actually give a tour, it couldn't be like a staffer, it has to be an actual member themselves. And so these were actual members who were giving tours to these people, to people who then, one congresswoman said, I saw that same person, during on the footage of the riot. And so now other members are starting to come forward, and they're just like, yeah, I saw those people around the Capitol with the members too. And you don't question it because up until now, we've been in a situation where most of the members are going to do the responsible thing whenever it comes to the security of the Capitol, even if they're pro-gun or they want to bring their own gun or whatever. And a lot of them do. They have their own gun in their offices, but you're not allowed to have it on the floor of the Capitol. And so I think it's, there's going to end up being a huge investigation into who these people are that were giving tours. Because it wasn't just one member. What Sean Patrick Maloney said is that he saw one in particular, and he said a male, he described it as a him, and told, I think it was Nicole Wallace, he said, I'll send him your way. But he didn't want to divulge who it was. Another female member saw somebody else that was different from who Maloney saw, I guess, and wouldn't say who it was or the gender of the person. So I feel like I'm getting the idea that there are several of these members who did this, and I don't know if it's the same as Gozer and Mo Brooks, but it might be. I mean, I think that those guys need to be investigated as well as the tour people. Because that's just horrifying. If the calls are coming from inside the house, literally.
Yeah, really.
Holy crap.
No, and it's one of those things where are there not video? Are the hallways not recorded? I mean,
yeah, no, they absolutely are.
So, I mean, there's going to be a record of this, and someone conceivably, we could be doing perp walks out of Congress.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, the FBI already has that CCTV footage already. And they've already been coming through it. I think they've been looking for, the actual people who were in the Capitol on that day. I know they've been looking for the IED bomber who left the explosives at the RNC and the DNC. But just all of this is just so shocking to me. And I feel like every time I talk to you, we talk about something else that shocks me. And you would think that by now, right, I would just be like, oh yeah, of course. But it's just like, oh my God.
That's where I'm at. See, I'm at you can't shock. There's virtually nothing that's going to shock me, because I woke up Wednesday morning going, I wonder how much blood will be shed in our streets. I was expecting much worse, to be honest with you.
I expected it in the streets.
Exactly.
Like I expected there to be like a huge thing, but I did not expect them to march into Congress with the intention of hanging Mike Pence and trying to kill Nancy Pelosi. That I assumed that. I mean, we talk about the Capitol Police all the time. These guys are not friendly officers. They get away with all kinds of stuff. And the fact that they let these people just walk in, oh my God. And we've already seen, I think like 10 of them have been suspended. The chief is already gone. I'm sure that there will be many more. But holy crap.
Yeah, no, it's something. But, on the Gozer front, I love the fact that in one of your articles, you put a videotape of virtually his entire family coming out against him during the campaign. Don't vote for him. He's horrible. I can't imagine how bad you have to be as a human being that everyone in your family hates you.
All of his brothers and sisters did a campaign ad for his opponent, talking about how they really are concerned that he has mental health issues. That this is not like, they're not making fun of him. They're not attacking him. They're saying, look, he is not a balanced individual. Please do not vote him into Congress. And the idiot still got voted into Congress and then sent out a tweet and was like, "See you at Mom's for Christmas."
And for those who want to look him up, Gosar is Gosar, Representative Gosar, Gosar. So you can take a look at this video or just check out Ross Story and Sarah Burris's work. It's fantastic stuff. Last bit I wanted to get to the Twitter ban. I'll tell you, I've been a lot happier since Trump has been banned from Twitter. What I'm even more what I find even better is listening to all these conservatives play the victim cards on how now these are the people who told us that they believe in the free market and they believe that business has to do what business has to do. And while business is doing what they got to do, it's because they're attacking us because of our beliefs.
God forbid, like the free market can say that, a baker cannot do a wedding cake for a gay wedding. But Twitter, can't decide that, okay, you've violated our terms of service. The thing that I'm pissed about is why did it take this long? He violated the terms of service how many times in the past 5 years? And now that, he's dazed from being out of office, they're like, all right, yeah, we probably should get rid of this dude because it's making us look bad.
Yeah, I mean,
you think?
Yeah, how many times did he when the impeachment was going on? He tweeted like 600 times in the month of December of 2019. We could have easily done away with that. And what I find hysterical is, and I wish he would have done it. I really wish he would have shown up on the day they were voting to impeach him. I really wish he would have showed up. I would have loved to see him bust in the doors. I would have loved to have seen that.
I mean, he keeps playing this victim card. He talks about what a tough guy he is and how strong he is, and he loves that Macho Man song and all of that crap. And yet, he gets banned on Twitter, and it's just like, oh, I'm a victim. Oh, I'm being targeted. And you're just like, dude, suck it up.
Yep, and not just Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat,
Pinterest. Pinterest banned him. Pinterest, where you go for crafting ideas and your wedding, and you're just like, what was he doing on Pinterest to get banned? Was he just like how to make your own body armor? I mean, I can't even imagine.
Well, fortunately, I don't have to hear about it now, but there's lots to get to. Sarah, I appreciate the time. I look forward to talking to you on the other side of this when there's daylight and sunshine and better days ahead, because the next time you'll be here, Joe Biden will be president, and, well, the insanity will slow.
Oh, have an awesome weekend, and everybody have a wonderful inauguration.
There you go, Sarah. I appreciate the time. Our good friend Sarah Burris, reporter over at Raw Story. Make sure you check out her work. She does fabulous, fantastic, amazing work. Quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Waving the flag of freedom for people, not corporations. Rick Smith.
Rick Snyder and several other officials will have to answer for the scandal in court.
Ex-governor of Michigan criminally charged in Flint water crisis. Trump EPA's parting gift to polluters, severe restrictions on all future pollution regulations. U.S. emissions plummet.
Good.
Due to coronavirus.
Oh.
Plus, world's biggest battery farm now online in California.
All of those stories online and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Where's your snarky comment?
Well, I banned Donald Trump from the Green News Report, so I got nothing.
Sad.
I know. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, it has been years and years and years, it seems, but maybe a little bit of accountability finally in Flint, Michigan?
Yes, former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder has been charged with 2 counts of willful neglect of duty for his role in the Flint water crisis. In 2014, an unelected manager appointed by Snyder ordered the city's water supply switched to the polluted Flint River to save money. The untreated water leached lead from pipes, poisoned poisoning the city's drinking water, and then state officials failed to act long after scientific evidence showed that residents in the predominantly black city were suffering from toxic lead poisoning, which causes health ailments and learning disabilities in children.
18 months later before they acted on it.
The switch also caused an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease that killed 12 people. The new charges are a welcome step in accountability and recovery for Flint, according to Democratic Representative Dan Kildee in an interview with WXYZ in Detroit.
Justice for the people of Flint comes in lots of different forms. Making things right for the people of Flint is an important part of that, but a very important part is holding the people who did this to Flint responsible.
Snyder's lawyer called the charges meritless. If convicted, the Republican Snyder faces up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine.
Yeah, a $1,000 fine. These are 2 misdemeanor charges. He'll never go to jail for a year. He probably won't even go to jail for a day. I think those lawyers ought to be thanking prosecutors at this point rather than complaining about it.
In Washington, the Trump Environmental Protection Agency launched a surprise attack on the incoming Biden administration's ability to tackle man-made climate change. Less than a week before President-elect Joe Biden takes office on Wednesday, as Trump was being impeached for the second time for inciting the attack on the U.S. Capitol, his EPA finalized a new climate rule that effectively prohibits all future limits on greenhouse gas emissions from any stationary industrial source other than power plants. The new rule sets a threshold designating any industry responsible for less than 3% of national emissions as exempt from all future emissions regulations permanently. It may sound small, but that threshold actually exempts prolific polluters like oil and gas production and refineries. The Biden administration and Congress can take actions to repeal the new rule, but it is just one of the many tangles and traps set by the Trump administration that will take time and focus to unravel.
But with Democrats in the majority in both the House and Senate, they can simply overturn it with the Congressional Review Act, right?
Right, but they have a lot of crises on their plate to deal with.
Yeah, they're going to be busy.
Trump EPA political appointees also interfered with scientific assessments of a specific type of forever chemicals in drinking water. PFAS chemicals used in firefighting foam, carpeting, and food packaging are linked to numerous ailments. Politico reports that appointees at EPA overruled the agency's career scientists to weaken a major health assessment for the toxic chemicals, which contaminate the drinking water of nearly 1 million Americans.
Can that be overturned as well with the Congressional Review Act?
No, that's a health assessment, which means the Biden EPA would have to go back and do the entire process of reassessing all over again.
Oh, you're right. They're going to have a lot of work ahead of them.
Good news, but for the worst possible reason. U.S. annual greenhouse gas emissions in 2020 fell by the greatest amount since World War II, 10%, according to a new estimate by the Rhodium Group. Global annual emissions also dropped more than 7% in 2020, but it's no cause for celebration because it's due to the coronavirus pandemic slamming the brakes on the global economy. The drop was temporary, and emissions will climb again as the economy recovers, but it does conclusively demonstrate that structural changes to reduce fossil fuel use will succeed in delivering big emissions reductions. Finally, one of the big structural changes to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is now underway in the U.S. Just 5 years ago, a utility-sized battery project of 20 megawatts was considered big. Now a 300-megawatt project, the largest in the world, has gone online in California. And an even bigger battery storage project is slated to come online in Florida by the end of 2021. Just one of many. So there's that.
There's that. I'll take it. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said, the reality is I'm feeling a lot better now that I don't have to look at Donald Trump's tweets every day. Now that he has been banned, but the best part of Trump being banned is not so much that I have nothing to look at, because it was part of my ritual every day. I'd get up, let's see what the idiot had to say today. the best part is listening to Gun Fetish Barbie and the rest of them, the rest of the right on the being angry and playing the victim card that the invisible hand gave them the fist. I find that hysterical. I'm here to share some thoughts on, well, was it the right thing to do? Was banning the Donald the right thing to do? And, what did social media play in the uprising and the attack on our Capitol? I've asked our good friend David Yankovich to come talk with us. David is one of the fantastic digital strategists in the country and a good friend of the program. David, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, I had to mute myself. You made me laugh when you said to see what the idiot's doing today.
But that was part of my ritual. It was part. I don't do notifications, but if I want, I would go. Okay, let's see what he said, and I would read through them on my terms, not Twitter's. And now I don't do that anymore.
Oh man, I don't know who out there who put the Trump's tweets on your notifications. That's awful. That's like a harbinger of death or something. Every time you get something, I would rather just read the news about it and see what he's saying rather than have the live notifications hit my feed.
I don't have any notifications. If I want something, I'll go look for it. Like every day, I look for this crazy Gun Fetish Barbie. She's been the new person that I've been paying attention to. Lauren Boebert, something like that.
Yeah, Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is social media, and I hate saying it, but it is. The Q crowd was organized on it and all of it, but the thing is, I don't think that people realize is that, when Obama won in 2009, the Republican Party looked around and they're like, whoa, we're behind on this. What are we going to do? And so from 2009, when Obama got into office, until today, they have organized one of the biggest media machines I think that the world has ever known. And that's where all this is coming from. They're organized on social media. They're messaging on social media. 65-70% of people now get their news from social media. And on our side of this, I'm really, really happy to see that Jamie Harrison got elected chair because he gets this. He gets the social media fight and kind of what we're up against here. And so I'm feeling pretty good about the future for once. Rick, we won. We won all three. We won the presidency. We won Congress. Next is going to be the Supreme Court. We got to get back. But we have the House. We have the Senate. I didn't think that we were going to get that. I don't know if you remember, but when I predicted earlier, I thought we weren't going to get the Senate. So, everybody out there that fought their rear ends off, it's huge. But we have to really look at social media, really look at it.
And from this point forward, and I think Joe Biden today kept coming out with his economic plan, which I think is fantastic. A big, chunky, bold spending plan to help us get through this pandemic. And then there's talk of, in February, if we get things under control, start talking about a really big, giant infrastructure plan. I think these are really great steps in the right direction. But I think social media has got to be there, touting the fact that these things are happening and that there are things that lives are getting better.
Yes. I mean, this is huge. When Obama became president in 2009, he rode to the White House with the great support of social media, and it was in the early infancy of getting in MySpace, Facebook, those places. And we were just starting to get. We were 2 years away from Twitter at that point. And Obama went into the presidency, and he didn't take his army with him. He had this entire social media digital warrior army who wanted to help push his agenda and his messaging and everything else. But once you get to the White House, you kind of lose track of that kind of stuff. I'm worried about that for Joe Biden too. But on your side of it, I know that now. I know what's going to happen, and so do a lot of us. But we got to back this up because otherwise, I posted a tweet earlier, and everybody got mad at me, and I said there is no center and there is no left. There are just Democrats, and up in arms on everything. But the thing is actually the left and the far left and the socialists and all the things that they're throwing out there against us right now. Those are false choice narratives. And they're created by Republican consultants, like I'm a Democratic consultant, to drive a wedge between the voter base, between the left and the middle here, or for want of a better word. Social media is the only thing that's going to be able to overcome this. I mean, you're seeing today $15 minimum wage in this. Everybody's going to get, I think, $1,400 for the stimulus, and then it's going to go to $2,000 retroactively. Probably one of the most bold plans I've seen come out of a presidential transition team for the first 100-day plan since FDR, and I really mean that.
Yep.
And he's going to need to do that. He's going to have to, because we have an economy on the brink of collapse. We have COVID that's going to kill, 500,000 people. the military and everything. Trump's wrecked world reputation, and we're probably going to have insurrections all throughout the country. Plus, you have a black community that's just getting devastated by the police officers out there that aren't doing the right things, and just everything. So Biden is going to have our back, or we're going to have his back, and he's not going to have time to be doing social media every day. But this is going to be a really, really big thing for the party.
No, I'm right there with you. No, I want to take a step back because obviously we can't move forward on a lot of this agenda, until we figure out what we're going to do with the past. Now, I'm hoping that, when Biden takes office, we can do both at the same time. But there's no moving forward. There's no unity until we figure out what happened on Wednesday of last week, why it happened, and how we make sure it doesn't happen again. And it's your view that social media played really an enormous part of the breakdown and what happened on Wednesday. Is it not?
Without social media, this event didn't happen. It just didn't. They wouldn't have had the coordination. They wouldn't have had the messaging. They wouldn't have been able to plan it out for weeks and months ahead of time, years ahead of time. All the misinformation and propaganda and lying that has done from the right, all this has been festering up. Where they got all this is from ISIS. It's a Pentagon report about ISIS recruiting more people for their side than we were able to for our side in 2012. And so where they got the original plan for this is, from that report from the Pentagon. All of this on social media, if we don't have this, it's gone. It just doesn't exist. It would just be the media and newspapers and all of this mistruth and everything, and all of it that's coming out doesn't exist in a world without social media. And the fact is, on the unity front, man, I got to say, if someone punches me in the face and I call the cops and the cops come and they say, hey, I just want to be friends, I'm good, no, you're getting assault charges. That's what happens in the real world. There's consequences.
Yep.
But then after the consequences are done and you pay your debt to society, if you're sorry, then I'm cool with it. If you show remorse, then you turn around, and then that's not me to judge you anymore. At this point now, though, we have insurrectionists in Congress, we have traitors, and we have the worst situation I think we've ever seen since, 1860 coming into the Biden presidency right now. We have traitors in Congress and in the Senate. We don't know who is, just today, the members of Congress are fearing for their lives. They don't know if someone's going to shoot them on the House floor. We've never seen anything like this before, and all of it goes back to social media.
Yeah, and the fact that it's pretty incredible that the fact that they put in metal detectors for the representatives, where I've known Congress people for years, and they've never gone through security checkpoints, and now you've got Nancy Pelosi, who's put forth a $5,000 for the first offense and $10,000 for the second offense for getting around the metal detectors and the screening. That speaks volumes.
Oh, it's huge. I remember one time I was in Fort Lauderdale and I was going out of the airport, and a woman ran through the metal detectors and went down the terminal, and they were yelling at her to stop and to not go through and everything. They ended up tasing her, tackled her, tased her, arrested her. I don't know why they don't do that. If you refuse to go through a metal detector, I don't care if you're a member of Congress or not, but I'm happy with finding them.
Yeah, I know, but the argument being that their time is valuable, and that whatever they have in their bags could be who knows, but there's a rationale behind it, and they've abused it. It's like a lot of things. These people have abused the privileges that we've given them, and now it's gone to the most extreme places. I look at some of these incoming Republicans and some of the ones that have been there, and just how far to the fringe that they actually are. We're in a really dangerous moment.
Oh, it's terrifying right now. I've never, like I said, it's 1860. President Lincoln was going to come by rail on Amtrak, just like Abraham Lincoln came by rail from Springfield, and Biden had to cancel. Biden can't do that because it's a security risk now. This is such an unbelievable moment of treason and traitors and white supremacy and Nazis and just an America that's ugly. And I know that's not who we really are. And I know we keep saying that, and that's like a buzzword, but I think about all these times like 9/11 when everybody came together, or even smaller things when out in people random acts of kindness and it's stuff that even Misha Collins and his people do. This isn't who we are, and it really just pisses me off because it's disgusting. I can't wait until 20 years from now we're looking back at this chapter and it's over with, and we can talk to it as if it's a history that is just ugly.
So you're
Just-
confident.
it's a
You're
terrible
confident
moment.
that we get through this.
We always get through it. We're going to win. They can't win. Like on the other side of it, what do they got? They got a bunch of white supremacists and neo-Nazis and people who are not telling the truth. Q is this phenomenon, this occult. Eventually, they're going to get to the point here where they've been chasing these little fake clues for how long? And they're already starting to wake up to it a little bit with Trump not being president. There is no master plan. There is no grand scheme. We're going to get through it. We always do. 1860s, we got through it. It was ugly. It was terrible. We got through it during World War I. We got through it during World War II. We've gone through it thick and thin before. We always do get through it. And I have no doubt that we won't this time either. It's just, we got to get tough. And we're getting there. We have to be decent. I agree with Biden, but we have to not forgive. We have to not forgive. We have to not forget. We have to prosecute those for crimes that they've committed, and those who haven't committed crimes. The ones that just, help push this and peddle this and run their mouths on it and everything like that. We need to drive these people from office and ensure they don't hold it again too. But yeah, we'll get through it. Because we're tougher and we're smarter.
I'm with you, and I think that's smart. So let me ask you, James Comey came out and said that that Biden should consider pardoning Trump. Do you share that view?
Oh man, this is not Donald. This is not Nixon and Ford here. This is I couldn't possibly even imagine what Joe Biden is going to be looking at for national security leaks and treasonous things that he's done with Russia. And I can't imagine that Biden could ever put himself in that situation with everything Trump's done. Nixon was a different story. It wasn't good. This is high crimes and misdemeanors if there ever was any. A traitor to the United States.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I put out a tweet today that Nixon got away with Watergate, Reagan got away with Iran-Contra, H.W. Bush basically swept everything from the Reagan years under the rug. You had W who lied us into a war, outed the CIA agent, all kinds of stuff like that, and they impeached Bill Clinton for what that was. Now I know what that was. He did lie.
For the definition of the word is, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, he did lie over oral sex. And it's one of those things where, it is what it is. But there's a false equivalency there. There's what happened under the desk. And then there's people, overrunning our Capitol and killing a police officer. I think that those are not equally weighted.
They're not. And here's the other thing. Biden is a man of decency, and he follows the institutions of government, and he reveres them. The pardon power, I know for a guy like him, is going to be probably one of the most important things that he has. But to get a pardon from a president, you're supposed to have expressed remorse. And you're supposed to have, there's qualifications to this. And Donald Trump has not expressed remorse. He is guilty. He has not admitted any guilt whatsoever. I mean, we've done a million investigations. What is there, 15, 20 investigations the second that he leaves office? They said that he could be arrested as early as when he leaves office. And I mean, I don't think that that's going to happen, but that's what he's looking at. And so I can't imagine that there would ever be a scenario where Joe Biden would be able to do that. If he did, I would have to accept that as Biden knowing more than me to get through this, because I can't imagine being in that chair right now. I would not want to be Joe Biden.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Let me ask you a last line of questioning, because, we're hearing a lot about the Twitter ban, and I'm listening to a lot of these conservatives who are whining and complaining about how it was, they're taking their free speech away and, overplaying the victim card. These are the people who love to tell you about the free market and the invisible hand and how much business should be able to do what business wants to do until it turns on them and business does what it does to protect itself. But that's a whole nother story. Should Twitter have banned Donald Trump?
Well, first off, I think it's kind of ironic that the people who told me that they're drinking my liberal tears and F my feelings for the last 4 years are now whining and complaining about a Twitter ban. When they dox people and harass them, I think Trump should absolutely be off Twitter. I think all of them should be. I talked to someone who worked for Twitter a couple of years ago, and they said that if they got rid of the neo-Nazis off of Twitter and the white supremacists, they'd also have to get rid of 80% of the Republican Party. That's why they haven't done this before. Now their market share is so bad with Trump on here that they have to. But the other part of this is he's lying to the American people. Free speech is not as protected under the First Amendment as you think it is when it comes to lying to the public, defrauding the public, inciting insurrections and riots, and causing violence in the public. And he's using their platform to do that, and all these platforms do. Finally, the business world kind of got to the point where it's enough. They can't sustain this anymore. Even Fox News, which I mean, it's mind blowing to me, but I've watched them cut away from, White House lies and everything else as well. So it's not there's no ban happening. No one's getting banned. You're getting done individually because you lie to the American public, and you're creating insurrection. Like, this is real simple. Just don't do that.
Yeah.
Donald Trump Jr. is still on Twitter. He's running around. Just don't lie to the public. Don't do things that are against the law that are going to hurt people. That's a very simple thing.
There you go.
I'm so tired of hearing this.
No, I'm right there with you. It's that simple truth. I mean, it's when you get down to it, it's the simple truth. Just don't do the things that you did, and you wouldn't have had the problem.
Just don't get people killed, and you can be on Twitter. They told him, don't lie. And he got on Twitter. The first freaking tweet he did, he lied. He got permanently banned. That's all they said. Just don't lie to the American public. And the first thing he did, don't cause violence, don't lie. That's the first thing. So he's gone. And I'm not sorry for it. And I hope that's what continues. I hope it continues for Democrats, too. The same rules should be applied. If we're ever out there and we go that way, ban us. I will not be a member of the Democratic Party if they ever act like this. And that's the thing. That's the true patriotism about it.
No, I'm right there with you. Last question. So overall, look, in a week, we're going to have a new president. I think things are, the policy initiatives that I see coming out of a Biden presidency so far, I'm really excited about the possibilities. There's actually an agenda. There's actually going to be somebody, holding onto the steering wheel, navigating the ship, and hopefully cleaning up the mess. Thoughts of the new year?
I mean, I remember 4 years ago doing your inauguration show, and it was, I think it was me, Dworkin, Sarah Kandazar. I can't remember everybody, but it was such a dark time, but also hopeful. So going into this here in this inauguration week, it's a much different feeling from last time. It's the first time that we're going to get to go to sleep at night and not have to worry about the world ending in the middle of the night when we wake up. There's help coming. Help is coming. That's what my opening and ending thing I can say here is that there is a government there that is not trying to kill you anymore. They're going to try to help you. We get 4 years of that. And if everybody stays engaged and if everybody keeps working at this, we'll get another 4 years. But we have to work. And the midterms are coming, and the Republicans really want to pummel us there. So, stay on social media, keep fighting back, keep pushing. Don't let them send misinformation out. And, I feel great. I think that we're going to be able to get this thing done if we can come together.
I'm right there with you, David. I appreciate the time, as always, my good friend. Look forward to talking to you again real soon.
You too, Rick. Thank you so much. Say hi to Carol.
I will do. Our good friend David Yankovich, one of the best digital strategists in the country, and someone I consider a friend. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1868. Representatives from more than 40 locals of the International Union of Bricklayers of North America gathered in New York City. It was the third annual convention of the new union. Members of Local 4 from New York City came to the convention to push for support for the 8-hour day. They also called upon the other unions to stand with their local if they went out on strike to win the 8-hour day. After the Civil War, the idea of an 8-hour workday had increasingly become a rallying cry for workers. Skilled craftsmen, such as bricklayers, would help to lead the charge. In 1910, Johns Hopkins University published a report on the bricklayers' contribution to this important labor struggle. According to their report, the convention decided not to press the 8-hour question at that time. Although the resolution for the 8-hour day had not become a part of the union's formal platform, there was growing member support for the cause. That year, Local 4 went out on strike to win the 8-hour day.
they were joined by New York Locals 2 and 12. The young union had little experience with leading such an action. But as the report points out, the workers were, quote, routed and all, but went to pieces. The flame of the idea of the 8-hour workday continued to spread across the International. By the next year's convention, it had caught fire. The resolution for the 8-hour workday was adopted and became an official demand of the Bricklayers Union. 4 years later, the New York Locals again went out on strike. This time, the more experienced unions found success. And as the report concluded, in just one day, the men won the shorter day on their own terms. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said at the opening, I got big hopes for this administration. Biden showing me something that I'm happy with. I'll tell you, I was concerned that he was going to go middle of the road, that he was going to, oh no, we need to moderate, we need to, we need austerity kind of measures, the old neoliberal model. We need more tax cuts for businesses and crap like that. The fact that he's come out with this $1.9 trillion plan, this is, to me, good news. And look, I've been honest about this all along, and I'll never change. I am most certainly a tax and spend liberal. I am someone who believes you tax the very wealthy and you spend money on things that you need. Right now, we need to get money into people's pockets to keep them in their homes and keep their head above water so they can keep food on the table and a roof over their heads and clothes on the kids' backs so that we can get through this. And we need money to get shots into people's arms. We need money to get into the states and local governments to keep everything from collapsing, because we're on this edge right now. And I know it may not seem like that but from representatives that I'm talking to around the country, they're all telling the same thing. Eventually, we hit this point where everything stops, where there's no more money to run your school system. There's no more money to pay the policemen. There's no more money to pay the pensions. There's no more money to do all of these things down the road. So what you need is the federal government who can run deficits to step in and fund this stuff. And Joe Biden gets this. And now that we've got a Democratic Senate, maybe that can happen, because understand, Mitch McConnell was never going to allow money to go to the states and the local governments, because his view was screw those union states, let their public sectors go belly up and let their pensions go belly up. That's what it's about. And it's about going after the heart of the Democratic Party, which are working people. The fact that Kentucky is one of the poorest states in the country and he did not fight for a stimulus to help them get through this speaks volumes to where his mind is. So the fact that Joe Biden is going to come out and say, look, we're going to help those local governments and the state governments make it through this with a bridge. We're going to help make sure that families are able to stay in their homes. We're going to give a little bit of stimulus money so that they're able to put food on the table so we get through this. Some child tax credits, which I think are not bad. Increasing for the short term the earned income tax credits so you help the working poor do a little bit better. The child tax credit so people with children can most certainly weather this moment where not only are you having to figure out how to work and support yourself, but you're taking on the role of educator. Because even if the kids are doing some in-school stuff, most of it's at home. So the fact that Biden gets this, the fact that he gets it, and at this moment, to me, is really important. And as that frame went, from the streets of Scranton, your choice is a kid from the streets of Scranton or Park Avenue. I want the kid from Scranton. I want the kid who's gonna ball up his fists and get in there and throw a couple punches. And while Joe Biden wasn't my first choice, I'm thrilled by where he's going. This is a good thing. this is going to help us get through this rough time and help us rebuild the economy on the other side. And there's a boatload of money in there for small businesses. Because look, there are tons of small businesses who have been decimated by this. They have to get some help too. And this is where I think Biden's plan is a good one. We're also they're going to increase, I guess, the unemployment benefit with an extra $400, and they're talking about doing it through the end of September. That is enormous, and that's telling me that he understands that there's no quick bounce back, like Trump tried to tell us. Oh no, everything off and then we flip the switch, everything's back. Biden gets it. I think this is going to be. I think he's going to be good for us. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.